He sought the ultimate heights of martial arts, yet he eventually realized that even an entire lifetime would not be enough to reach them. In order to overturn this harsh truth, he placed his faith in an ancient legend, one that claimed that deep within a sacred sanctuary, protected by a divine dragon, there existed a golden fruit. This fruit was said to possess the power of immortality. Driven by unwavering determination, he set out on a perilous journey to obtain this legendary treasure. After enduring countless hardships, he finally confronted the divine dragon and, through that encounter, confirmed that the golden fruit truly existed, the fabled fruit of immortality. At last, he approached the sacred tree bearing the golden fruit and grasped it, declaring that with this power, he could continue pursuing the ultimate heights of martial arts. Without hesitation, he consumed the fruit, and his body was instantly overwhelmed by a powerful surge of energy. His name was Gilfas Eldragon. The man hailed as the strongest in the world. Several decades later, Gilfas lay on his deathbed as his son and grandson came to see him for the final time. The one standing by his side was Gilliam, the first son of the Eldragon family. Gilfas slowly opened his eyes. In his heart, Gilfas reflected that, in the end, the legends he once believed in could not be passed on. Still, he felt fortunate to have been blessed with a loving wife and devoted children, and had no regrets. Yet, that was far from the truth. In reality, he carried countless regrets. He admitted that if he had been given more time, he would have reached the martial arts peak that still eluded him. With those final thoughts, Gilfas passed away, causing Gilliam to cry out in grief. Gilfas' life came to an end, or so it seemed. The very next moment, Gilfas found himself opening his eyes as a baby. Confused, he wondered if he had merely been sleeping. As he looked at the wall, he recognized the familiar wallpaper of the annex. Not only that, but his body felt incredibly light. When he examined his hands, he was stunned to see that they were those of an infant. Realizing that he had been reborn as a baby left him in complete shock. Even under such an overwhelming situation, Gilfas maintained his composure and calmly began to think. For someone of his level, who had reached the 10-star realm, to be involved in such a bizarre phenomenon without sensing it beforehand was completely unnatural. He questioned who could have done this and how it was possible. Then, his thoughts returned to the battle against the divine dragon and the moment he consumed the golden fruit. At last, he understood that the fruit's true effect was not immortality, but reincarnation. This realization filled him with delight. Though unexpected, this outcome granted him another chance to pursue the ultimate heights of martial arts. Looking around, Gilfas noticed that many other babies were sleeping in the same room. Being in the annex meant that he had been reborn into the Eldragon family once again, though he could not understand why so many infants were gathered there. Moments later, numerous maids entered the room, carrying feeding bottles and jugs filled with potion. As the maids began filling the feeders, Gilfas realized that it appeared to be feeding time. One maid instructed another to prepare the mixture, after which they brought in a goblin and forced it to drink the red potion. After consuming it, the goblin was suddenly taken down. Gilfas was startled and questioned what had just happened. The maids calmly remarked that this much is sufficient. The potion should be safe for feeding the children. They then began distributing it to the babies in the room. Eventually, a maid reached Gilfas and lifted him while he was still trying to comprehend what the infants were being fed. He immediately realized that it was not milk. He tried to resist, sensing the immense source power contained within the liquid and recognizing how dangerous it was for newborns. However, unable to overcome a baby's natural instincts, he began drinking it regardless. Gilfas was startled, having momentarily forgotten his current condition. Upon tasting it, he realized that the liquid was ancient dragon core potion, and understood that the earlier dilution was meant to reduce its lethality. By then, he had already swallowed a small amount. Though dangerous, the quantity was not enough to kill him. Noticing that other babies were instinctively spitting it out, Gilfas considered doing the same to avoid disaster. However, he hesitated. Instead, he recognized this as a rare opportunity. If he could absorb all of this source power, he might surpass even his former self and finally reach the ultimate heights of martial arts. With that resolve, he continued drinking, fully committing to the risk. The dragon potion surged through his body. Overwhelming his senses, Gilfas does not give up and deliberately begins drinking the potion. The maid is shocked when she realizes that the baby is consuming it on his own. Gilfas decides to absorb all of the ancient dragon's source power, believing that this will finally allow him to pursue the ultimate heights of martial arts that he failed to reach in his previous life. Unlike before, the ancient dragon's source power is absorbed with surprising ease. Finding this outcome ideal, Gilfas continues drinking until none of it remains. Once he finishes, the maid gently places him back onto the bed. Somehow, Gilfas manages to endure the process, and the other babies appear to have survived as well. This leads Gilfas to remark that a baby's survival instinct should never be underestimated. Shortly after, overcome by fatigue, Gilfas slowly fell asleep. 7 years later, Gilfas is seen performing handstand push-ups. After completing 100 repetitions, he releases a large stone he had been gripping with his feet and tosses it into the air before smoothly standing upright. After only 7 years of training, Gilfas is highly satisfied with the remarkable physique he has developed, thanks to the ancient dragon's potion. The former head of the Eldragon family, Gilfas, is now known as Zeke Eldragon. All living beings possess source power, and the ancient dragon's potion that Zeke and the other children were made to consume contained an immense concentration of it. As a result, the babies who drank it, to varying degrees, developed bodies far stronger than those of ordinary people. When combined with the source power of the divine dragon that Gilfas defeated in his previous life, which still resides within him, Zeke, who was the only baby to fully absorb the ancient dragon's source power, underwent changes that surprised even himself. However, after cultivating for some time, Zeke remains dissatisfied, as he has only reached the 1-star level. In his view, the situation is unacceptable, as by now he should have achieved at least 4 stars. Stars represent one's source power compressed to its limit, with the body regarded as a universe in which these stars float. The greater the number of stars, the stronger the individual becomes, though each additional star is increasingly difficult to form. In his previous life, Zeke, then known as Gilfas, had reached an unprecedented 10 stars, making him a unique existence in the world. Gazing at the distant mountains, Zeke reflects on how quickly time has passed. 7 years have gone by since his rebirth as an illegitimate child of the current head of the Eldragon family. His mother has already passed away, and his father has never once appeared before him. This leads Zeke to question the family head's qualities as a father. More than that, he is astonished by the fact that he has been reborn 1,000 years into the future. Reincarnation alone would have been shocking, but awakening a millennium later reveals that the world has transformed into a harsh realm governed by extreme survival of the fittest. A clear example of this is the practice of making infants consume ancient dragon's potion, a test known as the dragon trial. Only the babies who survive this trial are meant to receive education as Eldragon warriors, or so it is supposed to be. Lost in these thoughts, Zeke notices a maid standing nearby, though she never provides answers to any meaningful questions. For 7 years, not a single instructor has come to train him. Finding this situation strange, Zeke confronts the maid, pointing out that those who pass the dragon trial are meant to receive combat training, yet he has only ever been attended by maids. The maid calmly asks if there is a problem. Zeke responds that he is not troubled, explaining that physical conditioning is currently more important to him than combat instruction, and that he can manage that aspect on his own. However, he adds that he would at least like some information about the other children or the main family. The maid replies that she is not permitted to answer such questions. Zeke insists that he is merely asking about family matters, but the maid continues to refuse. Growing irritated, Zeke releases a hint of his immense energy and asks if that is truly all she is capable of saying. Nevertheless, it has no effect, and the maid repeats once more that she is not allowed to provide any information. Zeke comments that his treatment has been somewhat harsh, to which the maid replies that they have only been ordered to attend to Zeke's daily needs. She adds that she herself is a 3-star practitioner, meaning she would be sufficient for basic combat instruction. For that reason, Zeke gives up on asking further questions and decides to head toward the forest, remarking that living together for 7 years while having only minimal interaction is far too unusual. The maid offers no response. As Zeke walks away, He turns back and asks if she is now deliberately ignoring him. Zeke enters the forest and cuts some poisonous grass, eating it while commenting that it is still disgusting and unpleasant, though he considers it part of his training. Although he maintains his patience, he has been continuously sensing a gaze following him, and he truly wishes something could be done about it. Soon after, Zeke sighs, saying that he did not expect them to reveal themselves over something so trivial, and tells the spy that if they have something to say, they should come out openly. As he searches for the hidden observer, Zeke instead notices an enraged boar surrounded by dense black mist, something he realizes did not exist 1,000 years ago. Wondering what kind of creature it is, Zeke watches as the boar senses him and charges forward. Zeke smiles at the sight, effortlessly dodging the boar's attack before striking it with a single punch and taking it down. He is surprised to find that even a light blow against a creature at the same 1-star level produces such overwhelming power. This pleases Zeke, as the quality of one's stars is extremely important. Afterward, he lifts the boar and begins leaving the forest, pondering whether he should set out on a journey since he is growing weary of being neglected. If he ever decides to leave, he concludes that the sea would be his destination. The scene then shifts to the martial artist who had been spying on Zeke. He is deeply confused, as Zeke manifested a star without any instruction and defeated an enraged boar in a single strike. Even more troubling is the fact that Zeke noticed his concealed presence. Taking everything into account, the man realizes that Zeke is far from ordinary. His mother died young, his father shows no interest in him, and there is no possible way the child could have received proper training. However, because the blood of the family head flows within Zeke, he is not permitted to leave the family and must remain under constant surveillance. Sitting beside a tree, the brown-haired man remarks that although Zeke is illegitimate, he still carries the head's bloodline, making the situation quite intriguing for the future. With that thought, the man disappears. Zeke soon returns home, where he notices 3 4-star fighters and 1 5-star warrior waiting inside. This immediately makes him wonder what people of such caliber could want. Curious, Zeke secretly listens in on their conversation. The fighters are speaking with their captain about how clean the countryside air is and how there are no nearby rifts, suggesting that there is likely little chaos in the area. Zeke determines that they do not appear hostile and therefore are not here for an assassination. With that in mind, he steps into the room and asks them directly what business they have. The fighters, who appear to be soldiers, immediately salute and bow upon seeing him. They introduce themselves, stating that this is their first meeting and that they have come to escort Zeke to take an examination. Hearing this, Zeke is taken completely by surprise and replies that he has not been taught anything at all. After arriving at the academy, Zeke stands in front of the academy building, remarking that he never thought he would return to the main estate. Shortly afterward, he was brought back by messengers from the main house, though not to live there permanently. The servants have Zeke change into the academy's uniform, as entry onto the grounds is not permitted otherwise. Over the past 1,000 years, the Eldragon family has established a dedicated educational institution, and all children born into the family aim to enter this dragon's nest, receiving education within their respective homes until the age of 7. Today marks the entrance examination. However, Zeke has not been taught anything at all. Even so, taking the examination is mandatory, which is why he was brought all the way from the frontier. Zeke sits by the street, reflecting on how all of his preparations to leave that house amounted to nothing once they forcibly sent him to the academy. Seeing Zeke in this state, Ringies, a boy from Ordscale village, approaches him and asks if he is all right or facing any trouble. Slightly startled, Zeke turns and asks who he is, prompting Ringies to introduce himself and explain that Zeke looked distressed. Zeke senses the inner energy flowing through Ringies and comments that while it seems timid, it is surprisingly perceptive. Standing up, Zeke apologizes and introduces himself in return. He then admits that he is confused about what they are expected to do during the examination. Ringies, who appears introverted and nervous, explains that the test content does not change from year to year and generally remains the same. Zeke denies having any knowledge of the test, stating that he truly does not know what it involves. Hearing Zeke's admission, Ringies becomes visibly shocked and worries that Zeke may not be all right. as participating in the examination without knowing its contents seems extremely reckless. Just as Ringiz is about to explain the test, Retin, also from Ordscale Village, interrupts, calling Ringiz a weakling. Startled, Ringiz turns around in fear. Retin continues mocking him, asking why someone as weak as Ringiz is even here and suggesting that he may have lost his way home. Ringiz tries to respond, stating that he is here for the dragon's nest examination, but Retin cuts him off, sneering that there is no way Ringiz could ever be accepted. Retin then smirks and reveals that Ringiz's father is a pseudo-dragon, using this fact to further belittle him. Zeke notices Ringiz trembling under the ridicule. Within the Eldragon family, a strict hierarchy exists under an absolute monarch. At the top are novice whelp dragons, followed by regular soldier child dragons, captain-level adult dragons, executive-level elder dragons, and finally, at the very bottom, pseudo-dragons. Those who fail to enter the dragon's nest or are unable to graduate are labeled as such, meaning immature ones. However, Ringiz longs to prove that pseudo-dragons are not inferior. As Ringiz sinks into despair, Zeke steps in, questioning how they can judge him without allowing him to try first. Retin turns his attention to Zeke, demanding to know who he is and whether he has a problem. Zeke calmly responds that he is merely asking an honest question and requests an explanation as to why it is supposedly impossible for Ringiz to pass the dragon's nest examination. Retin scoffs and bluntly states that it is because Ringiz is weak. Zeke looks at Ringiz, releases a faint aura, and remarks that Ringiz is likely far stronger than Retin and his companions. This statement infuriates them, as they cannot tolerate being called weak themselves. However, before the argument can escalate further, one of the guards arrives and calls for the attention of all examinees. The adult dragon examiner announces that the dragon's nest entrance examination is about to begin and instructs all applicants to register in order before proceeding quickly with their numbered tags. Hearing the announcement, Retin decides to leave, planning to cause trouble for Zeke later. Zeke lets out a sigh, remarking that Retin did not need to get that angry, and comments that young people these days are far too short-tempered. Hearing this, Ringiz responds in confusion, pointing out that they are all the same age and that anyone would be upset after being told that Ringiz was stronger. Zeke replies that since the examination is mandatory, declaring something impossible without even testing it is unreasonable. Ringiz then reveals that examinees are actually allowed to withdraw. Realizing that Zeke truly knows nothing about the process, Ringiz is taken aback. Zeke himself is surprised upon hearing this and admits that he had no idea. Ringiz advises Zeke to withdraw so he will not get hurt, but Zeke smirks and states that someone of his skill level could not withdraw even if he wanted to. Ringiz praises Zeke's confidence, even though he knows that Zeke is unaware of the test's contents. Zeke urges them to hurry, warning that the test will soon begin. Still confused, Ringiz agrees, and the two head off together to take the examination. The instructor then explains the test, which is surprisingly simple. The examinees only need to scratch a rock in order to pass. No personal weapons are allowed, though weapons prepared by the academy may be used, and bare hands are also permitted. The instructor adds that each examinee is given only 3 attempts to pass the test. Sitting among the students, Zeke comments that it is an unexpectedly easy examination, which startles Ringiz. Zeke reasons that merely scratching a rock should be simple. After undergoing a brutal test such as the dragon trial, he had expected a far more intimidating test. As a result, he finds the examination anticlimactic. The guard announces the start of the test and calls the first examinee forward. The student swings a sword with all his strength and strikes the rock, but in the next instant, his arm is severely injured, shocking Zeke. The student collapses to the ground in pain. The inspector declares the first attempt a failure and, with 2 attempts remaining, asks if the student wishes to try again. The student refuses, and the attempt is officially marked as abandoned. The instructor calls for the next examinee to step forward. This scene infuriates Zeke, and he asks Ringiz what kind of rock it is. Ringiz explains that it is called a regeneration stone, a material that instantly repairs even minor scratches. Additionally, when struck with brute force, it reflects the attack back at hundreds of times its original power. Hearing this, Zeke remarks that such a material is absurd. Ringies adds that if one properly circulates source power throughout the body before attacking, the stone can be scratched safely. From this explanation, Zeke concludes that the ability to control source power is more important than the quality of one's martial techniques. Observing the examinees, Zeke estimates that quite a few will manage to pass the test, including Retin and his companions. The examination continues, but students fail one after another. Eventually, the number called is 315, Zeke's number. Ringies grows extremely anxious and once again suggests that Zeke withdraw, but Zeke calmly steps forward, telling Ringies not to worry. As Zeke approaches the stone, the instructor looks at him closely and senses an extraordinary presence radiating from his body. Zeke informs the inspector that he will not be using a weapon, as he believes it will not be necessary and that his fists are sufficient. The surrounding students are shocked to learn that Zeke intends to fight barehanded. They whisper among themselves, claiming that even if Zeke is skilled at manipulating source power, there is no way he could leave a scratch on the stone without a weapon. Many of them speculate that his entire arm could be severely injured. Hearing these comments, Ringies becomes extremely worried, thinking that this outcome was inevitable and that perhaps he should have tried harder to stop Zeke. As the instructor signals the start of the test, Zeke studies the rock carefully. He realizes that it is a mineral he has never seen in his previous life, but he assumes it must be a product of the 1,000 years that have passed. Many things in this era are unfamiliar to him, yet he decides that it does not matter. Zeke then channels all of his energy into his fist, preparing to strike. Ringies, filled with anxiety, shouts Zeke's name, hoping to stop him. Ignoring the warning, Zeke wears a battle-driven smile and punches the rock, believing that this is the moment to unleash his full power in his current body. Zeke activates the first form of the Dragon Destruction Combat Arts, Burst Strike, and shatters the rock completely. Dust explodes outward, reaching Ringies and the surrounding students. Even the instructor is left in awe by the sight. Zeke smiles and comments that the technique was still slightly too advanced for his present state, as his hand suffers an injury, making him realize that he still requires much more training. The students stand frozen in silence, staring in disbelief with their mouths wide open. Retin clicks his tongue in frustration after witnessing the shattered stone, while a female student watches Zeke with clear interest. Among them all, Ringies is the most stunned. The instructor finds the situation unbelievable. The regeneration stone has completely disappeared, something that should only be possible for someone at 4-star level or higher. There is simply no way a child should be capable of such a feat. Even so, the instructor acknowledges that although Zeke is an illegitimate child, he truly carries the bloodline of the family head. Moreover, the technique Zeke used feels strangely familiar, as if the instructor has seen it somewhere before. Zeke then turns toward the examiner and calmly asks about his test results. The instructor announces that Zeke has passed the examination, and another soldier steps forward to hand him a potion. Confused, Zeke asks what it is, but the soldier does not respond. Instead, the instructor urges the soldier to hurry and clear the area. After leaving, Zeke vents his frustration, shouting that people in this era are excessively prickly and lack composure. Ringies, still overwhelmed by what he witnessed, praises Zeke for his incredible performance. Zeke casually responds that it was easy, then shows Ringies the potion and asks about it. Ringies explains that it is a healing potion. Realizing that Zeke is unfamiliar with healing potions as well, Ringies opens it and explains that it is a standard one. He hands it back to Zeke, who inspects the liquid and determines that it does not appear to be poisonous. He wonders whether it might be a form of spirit medicine. Cloud-piercing clarity wood. This medicine is refined from extremely rare materials. Its ingredients include medicinal herbs that only grow within secret realms, as well as cores filled with high-purity source power taken from divine beasts and phantom beasts, creatures that are exceedingly difficult to even encounter. When consumed, it instantly heals injuries, removes old scars, and greatly enhances one's source power. However, due to the rarity of its materials and the difficulty of refinement, such medicine almost never appears in the world. Without hesitation, Zeke drinks the potion in a single gulp. In the very next moment, his injured arm is completely healed. With an astonished expression, Zeke shouts and asks if the potion truly was spirit medicine. Ringies replies that he does not know much about spirit medicine, but the healing potions prepared by the Eldragon family are definitely superior to those sold commercially. Hearing this, Zeke is deeply surprised, prompting Ringies to ask whether it is really that shocking. Zeke responds that it is, explaining that such severe injuries were healed instantly. After observing his condition more carefully, Zeke realizes that there does not seem to be any increase in source power, unlike what would occur with true spirit medicine. From Ringi's perspective, Zeke himself was far more impressive, but Zeke dismisses the compliment, telling Ringies not to be ridiculous. Zeke then looks at the potion again, reflecting on how remarkable it is and how much wisdom humanity has accumulated over the past 1,000 years. Zeke and Ringies return to their seats, and once again Ringies praises Zeke, saying that he was incredibly strong. Zeke replies calmly that he is aiming to become the strongest in the world. Hearing such a statement delivered so casually leaves Ringies stunned, prompting him to remark on how unbelievable Zeke sounds. Soon after, numbers 383, 395, and 405 are announced as having passed, these being Retin and his group of bullies. Zeke thinks that this outcome is exactly as he expected, while Ringies begins shivering after hearing that they succeeded. At last, it is Ringies' turn. He awkwardly makes his way down, and noticing his behavior, Zeke asks why he is so nervous when he should have no trouble. Zeke raises his voice, urging Ringies to pull himself together. Ringies tearfully responds, asking Zeke not to raise the standard so high. As the test begins, Zeke watches in confusion as Ringies prepares. Ringies chooses to use a sword and strikes the rock with all his strength, only for the force to rebound. The instructor announces that the first attempt has failed and informs Ringies that he has 2 attempts remaining. Ringies gathers himself and tries again, but once more he fails to scratch the stone and collapses to the ground. He stares at his trembling hands in despair. Seeing this, one of Retin's companions laughs mockingly, taunting Ringies and claiming that a pseudo-dragon's child could never accomplish anything and should simply give up. Retin then turns to Zeke, sarcastically asking what happened to his earlier claim that Ringies was stronger than Retin's group, pointing out that Ringies is now lying helplessly on the ground. The taunting continues until the instructor announces that Ringies has only 1 attempt left and asks whether he wishes to try again. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Ringies begins to give up. At that moment, Zeke steps in and asks Ringies what he is doing. Zeke walks down to the testing area and questions why Ringies is using a sword instead of a spear. Ringies, confused, asks what Zeke means. Zeke clarifies that he means exactly what he said and questions why Ringies would choose an unsuitable weapon without any plan. Zeke continues, stating that in Ringies' current condition, no matter how hard he tries, he will never manage to scratch the stone with a sword. Hearing this, the surrounding students burst into laughter, calling Zeke foolish and pointing out that Ringies' father does not use spears and taught him swordsmanship instead. They continue mocking Ringies, insisting that changing weapons will not alter the result. Zeke then turns to the examiner and asks whether changing weapons in the middle of the test is permitted. The examiner replies that it is allowed. Zeke smiles at Ringies and says that this means Ringies can change his weapon. He then asks whether Ringies intends to leave things as they are or stand up and try again. Encouraged by Zeke's words, Ringies becomes determined and rises to his feet, declaring that he will attempt the test again, this time using a spear. Ringies' father was unable to enter the dragon's nest. As a result, he was labeled a pseudo-dragon and ridiculed by others. Even so, Ringies' father did not become bitter and instead raised his son with care and dignity. The Ringies that his father raised is not fake. Today, here and now, Ringies will prove that. If Ringies were to try again with the sword, the result would be the same. Because of this, and choosing the best possible course of action, Ringies decides to trust Zeke, even though he has no idea how to properly use a spear. Seeing Ringies hesitate, Zeke instructs him to simply thrust forward without overthinking anything. He tells him that all he needs to do is thrust straight ahead. Logically speaking, merely thrusting forward with a spear Ringies has never used before should not be enough to scratch the regeneration stone. However, Ringies recalls Zeke's words, that there is no way to know the outcome without trying. He only met Zeke today, and although it may seem strange, Zeke believed in Ringies, so Ringies decides to believe in himself as well. When Ringies used a sword in the past, his source power never flowed this freely through his body. Gathering his resolve, Ringies thrusts the spear forward with all his strength. Before Retin and his companions can even see whether it worked, they burst into loud laughter, claiming that they already warned him that changing weapons would not make a difference. But this time, it is different. Ringies realizes that the spear feels as though it has been part of his body from the very beginning. He continues thrusting the spear forward, shocking Retin and his group of bullies, and astonishing even the instructors. It turns out that Ringies is not merely scratching the stone, he is breaking straight through the stone. Witnessing this, Zeke begins clapping and congratulates Ringies. Still dazed, Ringies asks what he just did, and in the next moment, the instructor announces that Ringies has passed the examination. Confused at first, Ringies struggles to process the words, until Zeke rushes forward and hugs him like a close friend, happily confirming that he succeeded just as Zeke expected. Realizing the truth, Ringies is overwhelmed with joy, bursting into tears as he hugs Zeke back and shouts that he truly passed. Retin and his friends grow anxious and frustrated upon seeing this, insisting that it must have been nothing more than coincidence. The instructor then loudly concludes the examination and announces the beginning of the entrance ceremony. Hearing this, Zeke is once again confused, surprised that it is already time for the ceremony, and asks Ringies whether that is all for the test. Ringies confirms this, adding that there may be additional tests after they officially enter. With mixed thoughts, Zeke asks what those tests might involve, and Ringies explains that the leadership of the Eldragon family will first deliver congratulatory speeches. At that moment, a group of soldiers arrives, among them a man emitting the most terrifying aura of all. Noticing this, Zeke asks about the gloomy-looking man, which immediately makes Ringies pale with fear. Ringies hurriedly tells Zeke that the man is the head of the Eldragon family. Hearing this, Zeke openly complains that he does not like the man's face and remarks that he should be more cheerful, saying that even ice would feel warmer than that expression. The moment Zeke says this, Ringies quickly covers Zeke's mouth, trembling as he desperately tells him to stay quiet. After being urged repeatedly, Zeke agrees to remain silent, though he continues glaring at the family head. As Zeke observes, he evaluates the current strength of the Eldragon family, noting the presence of several 7-star practitioners and a considerable number of 6-star warriors. He acknowledges that it is an impressive force. His attention then returns to the current family head, Balza Eldragon. Zeke never imagined that Balza would be an 8-star level practitioner. Even 1,000 years ago, there were fewer than a dozen 8-star warriors in the entire world. Though Zeke does not fully understand this era, he still finds that he strongly dislikes Balza, especially considering that Balza is his biological father. Soon after, the instructor announces that Balza will deliver a speech. Balza steps forward, releasing his aura as he instructs the students to strive to become the best soldiers of the Eldragon family. After finishing his words, Balza releases his chi toward the students, making it difficult for them to breathe. Everyone struggles under the pressure, including Ringies, while Zeke remains unaffected. The overwhelming force presses down on the crowd as Zeke stares at Balza, sensing a deep and unfamiliar resentment within himself. Zeke does not know why, but he truly cannot bring himself to like Balza at all. After Balza leaves, a golden-haired warrior steps forward with a cheerful laugh, commenting that Balza's speech was brief. He then tells the students that the family head has high expectations for them. Zeke glares at the golden-haired man, wondering who he is. The man continues, saying he will leave the stiff formalities to others and encourages everyone to pursue power with determination. Though Zeke does not fully understand him, he feels relieved that the atmosphere has lightened. The golden-haired warrior jokes with the instructor, saying that someone who worries too much will go bald, prompting a response. The previously tense students gradually return to their normal state. Finally, the instructor announces that dormitory assignments will now be revealed and instructs students to move promptly when their names are called. Hearing this, Zeke asks Ringies whether they will be assigned together. Ringies explains that there are 4 dragons' nests, and students are divided among the east, west, south, and north halls. Zeke understands and soon hears his name called. He stands up, bids Ringy's farewell, and receives a map to his assigned room before heading to the East Hall of the Dragon's Nest. However, after 1,000 years, the layout has changed significantly, and Zeke soon finds himself lost. After wandering for a while, he finally locates his room, realizing that he arrived late and that his roommate is likely already inside. Zeke opens the door and apologizes for being late, introducing himself and stating that they will be sharing the room from now on. The one who turns out to be Zeke's roommate is none other than Ringy's. Zeke smiles and comments that it seems they truly share quite a connection. Ringy's agrees, admitting that he had been feeling anxious about being alone, so this arrangement is a relief. Sitting down on the bed, Zeke asks if there are no more plans for the day. Ringy's confirms that this is correct and informs Zeke that training will begin immediately starting tomorrow. Zeke responds in confusion, saying, "That's right." Hearing this, Ringy's realizes that Zeke was not paying attention to what the instructor had said earlier. Zeke gives a thumbs up and casually brags that he was not listening at all. Ringy's replies that this is not something to brag about. Ringy's then continues, saying that they should go to sleep early because training starts right away the next day. Zeke reflects that he originally planned to escape from that boring household and go on a journey. However, after witnessing the regeneration stone and the medicine, along with many other interesting things during the entrance examination, a lot has changed. To understand how the world has evolved over the past 1,000 years, Zeke concludes that staying with the Eldragon family for a while may not be such a bad idea. After 1 month passes, all the students are undergoing physical training while carrying heavy weights. Many of them are crying as they struggle under the burden. The instructor motivates them by explaining that the dragon's breath he taught them is a powerful breathing technique created by the 15th head of the Eldragon family. Because of this, all students must master it perfectly so they can use it in any situation. Even Ringy's is pushing himself to his limits, sweating heavily as he continues holding the weights. The instructor then notices that some students have already mastered Dragon's Breath. Among them is Likia, whose source power is slightly overflowing, proving that she is close to reaching the 2-star level. At the same time, the instructor turns his gaze toward Zeke, confused by what he is witnessing. Zeke is not only holding the assigned weight with ease, but is also lifting large rocks effortlessly. The instructor thinks to himself that Zeke must certainly belong to the head's bloodline, yet it makes no sense. Zeke should have had no instructors and no prior training, and still he performs so well. Meanwhile, Zeke himself is surprised to realize that his breathing technique, Dragon King's Breath, has been refined and passed down as Dragon's Breath. Breathing techniques are methods of absorbing atmospheric source power into the body and circulating it to strengthen one's own source power. What determines their efficiency is the user's skill and ingenuity. For this reason, prestigious families develop their own unique methods, and once perfected, these techniques are guarded as closely held secrets. Dragon's Breath is certainly safe and easy to master, but because it can only be used while resting, Zeke finds it unnecessary for himself. Gilfa's Eldragon's secret technique, Dragon King's Breath, is the only breathing method that allows manipulation of source power without disrupting breathing, even while moving. Its effects are tremendous, but very few people could inherit it due to its extreme difficulty. That is why the technique was deliberately simplified, allowing everyone to use it and thereby increase the overall strength of the family. Zeke is deeply moved by this realization, as he never imagined that his technique would survive into the future in such a transformed state. He begins to wonder whether other martial arts have also changed over the past 1,000 years. The thought excites him, and he cannot wait to find out. All the while, Leica silently watches Zeke from a distance. Eventually, lunchtime arrives. Most of the students are so exhausted that they barely have the strength to hold their spoons. Yet they all glare at Zeke, who is eating his meal without any trouble. While eating, Zeke asks Ringy's what is wrong and why he seems so down. He then tells Ringy's that he will never gain strength if he does not eat properly. Ringy's asks how Zeke can still be so energetic, commenting that Zeke's stamina is abnormal. Zeke replies that it is not his stamina that is strange, but rather that everyone else lacks stamina, and that they need to eat more and train harder. Zeke then offers a portion of his food to Ringy's. Nervously, Ringy's declines, replying that he will eat on his own. Zeke then looks toward Retin, who is sitting nearby and eating, and thinks that some people are clearly well-trained. Suddenly, Laika approaches Zeke and compliments him, saying that he is amazing. Zeke looks at her and asks who she is. Hearing this, Ringies and whispers to Zeke, asking if he truly does not know her. Ringies then reveals that she is the daughter of the family head. Zeke responds that he does not know her at all. Ringies continues whispering, saying that it cannot be true, and explains that she is one of the candidates to become the next head of the Eldragon family. Ringies is completely shocked and quickly tells Zeke that she is not someone they should normally be speaking to so casually. Hearing this, Zeke calmly reveals that he is also the head's son, although illegitimate. Ringies becomes extremely confused upon hearing this, and Laika asks if it is truly true that Zeke is the head's illegitimate child. Zeke responds by asking why he would lie about something like that. Laika then asks how Zeke was strong enough to shatter the regeneration stone with his bare hands, stating that there is no way a mere illegitimate child with no backing could achieve such a feat. While continuing to eat, Zeke casually replies that it is simply because he is who he is, then tells Ringies to stop spacing out and focus on eating. Laika suddenly smiles brightly, claiming that Zeke is truly interesting. She then sits beside him and boldly suggests that Zeke should serve under her. Confused, Zeke asks what she means by that, so Laika explains that she is asking him to become her subordinate. She says that she would provide support to an illegitimate child who needs allies, meaning that she would use his strength to help herself become the family head. She also promises that she would treat him well after she assumes the position. Hearing this, Zeke immediately declines. This causes Laika to ask for his reason, and she then releases her energy, questioning whether Zeke is aiming for the position of family head himself. Zeke observes Laika and realizes that she is on the verge of reaching the 2-star level, already able to emit aura outside her body. Considering her age, he finds her impressive. However, he tells her to do whatever she wants, as he has no interest in becoming the head or involving himself in family politics. Zeke genuinely has no interest in family matters. Hearing this response, Laika asks why he still refuses to join her. This angers Zeke, and he presses his knife into the table near her hand while releasing his aura, declaring that he will never serve under anyone because he is the strongest. Laika is deeply shocked, realizing that she has been completely overwhelmed by Zeke's presence. Ringies becomes terrified upon seeing Laika's reaction and hurriedly asks them both to calm down. However, Laika is now furious and decides to force Zeke into submission, declaring that she will fight him. Ringies starts trembling in fear upon hearing this. Zeke, meanwhile, calmly continues eating and looks at her. The scene then shifts to the hallway, where students are gathering and heading toward the training grounds. Word has spread that a duel involving the younger generation is about to take place, and the challenger is Laika from the Typhoon family. Although the students do not know the exact reason, none of them want to miss it. As they arrive at the training grounds to spectate, many of them wonder who Zeke is, as they have never seen him before. Meanwhile, Zeke comments that the situation has become quite serious. Ringies stammers nervously, asking Zeke if he is truly fine, given that his opponent is Laika. Zeke responds that Ringies claims not to know her, and more importantly, he asks why Ringies suddenly switched to formal speech. Ringies, visibly shaken, replies that of course he would speak formally, since Zeke is the head son. Zeke and tells Ringies to do whatever he likes. More urgently, Ringies pleads with Zeke to reconsider, explaining that his opponent is Laika, the daughter of the current head, Balza. She also inherits the blood of the Typhoon family, one of the great families that support the Eldragon house. On top of that, she is a prodigy who mastered all forms of the Typhoon family's hereditary lightning great sword techniques at the age of 7, just like Balza's other highly talented children. Hearing all of this, Zeke apologizes and says that he understands none of it except that she is the current head's daughter, and everything else is new information to him. Ringies becomes even more anxious and asks why that is. Zeke replies that Ringies should not ask him, and that not knowing simply makes things more enjoyable. Zeke looks genuinely pleased and comments that this is very exciting. This only worries Ringies further, as he insists that no matter how strong Master Zeke may be, Laika is at a serious disadvantage, and he asks why Zeke would still accept the challenge. Zeke replies that when someone challenges him to a fight, he does not run away, especially since she already seems ready. Standing across from them, Laika grips her sword and releases her white aura, coldly asking whether their idle chatter is finally over. Ringies begins trembling in fear upon hearing this, and Zeke calmly replies to Laika that he is ready. Ringies quickly runs off, shouting to Zeke to be careful. Zeke comments that it really depends on Laika, then turns to her and asks why she is so determined to challenge him. Standing firmly, Laika responds that she intends to become the head of the family, and to do so, she must make Zeke submit and join her. Zeke questions what she means and how that relates to her own position. Laika, confused, asks if he truly does not understand his own family's situation, wondering if it is because he is an illegitimate child. Since Zeke is actually the founder reincarnated, he replies that he might have known if she had asked him directly. Laika decides to explain. She tells Zeke to pay attention. Including both of them, there are 5 candidates to become the next head. Everyone except Zeke is aligned with one of the 4 branch families of the Eldragon lineage. Which branch produces the next head is critical, so all the candidates are gathered at the dragon's nest, representing their respective families. To become the next head, Laika needs sufficient power to stand against her older brothers. Hearing this, Zeke concludes that it is essentially a clash among the 4 branches, and he finds it very complicated, leaving him uncertain about the intricacies. Laika continues, asserting that as a candidate for the next head, she must solidify her position, and that is why she intends to defeat Zeke right here. She charges toward him, swinging her massive training greatsword, but Zeke easily dodges her attack. She follows up with a flurry of strikes, yet he evades them effortlessly once again. She shouts in frustration that he let her attacks escape. The spectators are stunned, witnessing her incredible speed and control over such a large weapon. Not only is her handling precise, but the pace of her attacks keeps increasing. The students watching quickly realize the true power of a branch heir, the immense strength of the head's children. Many believe it is only a matter of time before the duel is decided in her favor. Meanwhile, Laika grows increasingly frustrated, unable to land a single hit, while Zeke continues to dodge all her swings with ease. Ringies finds the scene astonishing. As he maneuvers, Zeke comments that this is a martial art he has never encountered before, and that such speed is not expected from a mere 1-star level practitioner. Hearing this, Laika shouts at him to be quiet and focus on the duel. Zeke calmly channels his energy into his fist, replying to Laika that he is indeed focused, which is precisely why he is able to strike directly at her midsection with such precision. Zeke lands a hit on her, causing Laika to fall to the ground, but the match is far from over. The spectators are utterly amazed, witnessing her attacks consistently miss. They all begin to wonder about Zeke's true identity. Struggling with intense pain, Laika demands to know why her attacks cannot connect, noting that for a 1-star, she is exceptionally fast. Zeke calmly replies that while Laika is indeed faster than any 1-star he has encountered, she is still just a 1-star. Laika glares at him and points out that he is also a 1-star, so he should not be able to keep up with her movements at all. Zeke responds, explaining simply that by observing breathing, eye movements, and subtle muscle shifts, anyone can anticipate most actions, and the rest comes with experience. Enraged, Laika rises to her feet, shouting that he is being ridiculous, and launches another attack. Zeke easily dodges and lands another punch, telling her that he can already predict her movements. The impact sends her flying into the wall, leaving the spectators stunned, wondering if she might actually lose. Ringies rushes forward, excitedly complimenting Zeke on his apparent victory, but Zeke interrupts, informing him that the fight is far from over. Laika had focused all her source power at her core to absorb his blow. Zeke praises her strength, saying she is truly formidable. Ringies, confused, watches as the dust settles, revealing Laika struggling to stand. He urges her to withdraw, but Zeke tells him to step back, warning that he will not be responsible if Ringies gets caught up in the fight. Zeke then reveals that Laika already had traces of a 2-star level, and now she has fully awakened it. The spectators immediately recognize the unmistakable white aura, the mark of a 2-star. At this level, one can emit source power outside their body, and in martial arts, this externalized energy is called aura. Standing there, Laika thanks Zeke, acknowledging that it was because of him that she reached the 2-star level. She immediately launches a new attack, claiming he has no chance of winning. Zeke smirks again, dodging the strike and commenting on her incredible speed. This time, however, the attack leaves a faint mark on him, surprising him, as he thought he had completely evaded it. Laika taunts, asking if he can see now, and declares that this is her ability. With her 2-star aura fully activated, she demonstrates the true Thunder Greatsword technique, unleashing an immense aura aligned with lightning. Zeke, astonished, notes that he is witnessing a martial art he has never encountered before and considers it the perfect opportunity to learn and observe. Even without physically touching Zeke, Laika is able to launch lightning at him, which surprises him greatly. He steps back, asking her to wait and inquiring what this is. With a pleased and amused expression, Zeke comments on the absurdity of her being able to manipulate lightning. Laika, undeterred, continues her assault, remarking that for someone saying that, he looks like he is thoroughly enjoying himself. She then unleashes a technique called Lightning Net. Zeke acknowledges that this is far beyond what he faced before, even for him. This lightning is now a significant challenge. The spectators, astonished, whisper among themselves, wondering what kind of battle this has become. Just the addition of 1 star has completely transformed the fight. Ringies grows extremely worried about Zeke. Observing carefully, Zeke realizes that the movements themselves are actually simple and unchanged from before. But the moment Laika reached 2-star level and gained her aura, the power of her lightning greatsword technique exploded. Zeke had thought she was fast before, but now she is even faster. More importantly, the nature of her lightning baffles him. Being able to cloak oneself in lightning is something he could theoretically counterattack, but he is intensely curious about the true essence of her power. The prospect of unraveling it makes him smile. Seeing his calm demeanor, Laika is impressed but also determined to wipe that smile off his face. Zeke lands on the ground, keeping his distance, but Laika uses her swift thunder technique and charges at him. He barely dodges, noting that the attack is like a lightning bolt, but the assault isn't over. He is slammed into the wall, sending dust flying everywhere. Ringies jumps from the first floor, while other students try to stop him. Surprisingly, Zeke is still unharmed. Laika then uses her lightning flash technique, which Zeke takes head-on. Ringies rushes forward, pleading with Laika to stop, fearing that any more attacks could kill Zeke. Laika refuses, arguing that stopping now would only insult Zeke. Zeke, once again, rises without counterattacking. Ringies shouts at him, begging him to surrender, and Laika adds her own urging, telling him to submit, noting that he is already in a terrible state. Zeke smiles at her words, which piques Laika's interest. She then manifests her aura, acknowledging that even as an illegitimate child, he is still a proud Eldragon. Determined to finish the battle, she unleashes her lightning greatsword technique, first secret art, Heaven's Thunder, and attacks with full force. Zeke takes the blow head-on without dodging, causing Ringies to panic as he sees Zeke fall unconscious. Laika drives her sword into the ground, apologizing to Ringies and declaring the match over. She is stunned when Zeke, using lightning, rises to his feet again. Shocked, she asks how he has a lightning aura. Zeke smiles, savoring the sensation of the aura himself, and admits to Laika that he doesn't fully understand it either. She is left even more bewildered as Zeke reveals that he had deliberately endured her attacks to analyze her power, and in the process, somehow became capable of using it himself. While receiving Laika's mysterious lightning attacks, Zeke continued using his breathing technique, Dragon King's Breath. Suddenly, the Dragon King's Breath reacted to her lightning aura, causing lightning to accumulate inside him. Before he realized it, he could manipulate the lightning, although he didn't fully understand the exact principle behind it. Zeke complimented Laika, noting that she must have a unique constitution. Then he realized that considering her greatsword technique is part of her family's hereditary martial arts, he wondered if her entire clan might possess a similar unique constitution. Amazed to discover that her source power itself carried lightning properties, Zeke acknowledged that her training had been excellent. More importantly, thanks to Laika, Zeke had also reached the 2-star level. Zeke declared that the match was not over yet. Laika launched another attack, but he dodged it with lightning-like speed. After dodging, however, he momentarily struggled to maintain balance. With the gain in source power, all of his muscles and nerves strengthened, demonstrating his incredible unique constitution, which slightly disrupted his senses. Standing there, lightning coursing around him, Zeke remarked that he needed some time to adjust. Ringies watched in awe, barely able to keep up with the battle between the next head candidates. He even wondered if he was imagining things because Lyca's lightning slashes were no longer connecting with Zeke. Frustrated, Lyca shouted that Zeke was mocking her. Zeke calmly replied that he wasn't mocking her at all and assured her that he properly considered her a serious threat. Both of them stepped back, and Zeke stretched his body, thinking it was time to end the match. He announced that he would create a new technique, leaving Lyca confused. As he contemplated a name, maybe first form or special form, Lyca wondered if he had secretly received combat training and questioned which family might have taught him, as it seemed impossible for any family to develop a new technique so easily. Zeke charged forward, noticing her distraction, and launched the attack. Dragon Destruction Combat Arts, Special Form, Lightning Peak. Lyca was struck and fell to the ground, giving Zeke the victory. Standing there with a smile, Zeke commented that it had been an interesting fight. Lyca, lying on the ground, was shocked at her loss but tried to rise, determined to become the family head. To achieve that, she needed to defeat her older brothers, and winning all matches was essential. She could not afford to lose. Observing her resolve, Zeke complimented her strength, surprising Lyca. He told her that learning new things was truly enjoyable and that this had been an extremely meaningful experience. Extending his hand, he added that it would be boring if this were the only time they fought, smiling as he suggested they spar again. Lyca's expression brightened, pleased by his words.